brilliant natural cymbals. So this is a cool topic. So both of us, I don't know about you guys, but we both own some natural, some brilliant. Lately,
increasingly more natural these days.
I'm also becoming more natural, but
that being more natural,
extremely natural.
Yeah.
But in the traditional sense, I guess you know, this is your straight up natural finish, and this is your brilliant-esque finish there.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of companies, like especially Sullivan, say they'll offer the same cymbal in both, and you're kind of left to think about which one you might want to go for.
I just realized this is on. Wow. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That was
I'm
awesome.
not going to use mine because it feels weird. But, so yeah, where were we?
We were talking about natural. One thing I will add about the natural is that a lot of people think that the natural, which is like this, or what Matt was showing you here, is the way a cymbal is supposed to be. And then this, like this brilliant finish, is some polish,
some added thing,
some lubricant that then made it shiny. Like, you know, when you go put wax on a car, and that's what they think it is, but it's not. Right? They're all that really is that they've taken the cymbal, the natural, and they put it through a high-speed buffer. Right? So I'm trying to remember how it looked when they went there, but there's this machine.
Harder press buff.
Yeah, hard press buff, and they put it on. So what it does, are you familiar with the term lathing?
Yeah.
Okay, so the lathing, it's used the whiteboard. All right, it's used the whiteboard now. So I'm gonna make this like super magnified for a second. So here's the cross section of a cymbal. So super magnified. Here's the lathing. Right? Make that a little sharper. So when it's like this, right? It's really sharp. So when it's like this, this is the natural finish, right? The brilliant finish is a little, not as wide, but you see how these are like sharper, and these are more rounded? So they rounded out the actual lathing. So instead of like this, they buffered it down a bit. So what that does is that makes the sound a bit more glassy. Okay.
So to jump ahead, I think, in terms of terminology, that's what we were
Did I just drum
it? Yeah, no, but it's something definitely we should have. Is that brilliant cymbals? I think the biggest characteristic if you take the same cymbal, brilliant natural, is there's a glassiness.
Or shimmer, I think you call it.
Shimmer, yeah. So if you want not necessarily more cut, but more of a sheen, more of a pristine, less of a settling into the music, and more of a floating above the music in a higher frequency. Brilliant tends to bring that. I find it tends to come through not as much live as it does in a recording. A lot of the time when you do a recording with natural cymbals, it really does blend a little more in the mix, whereas with Brilliant, it does tend to have that high sheen in the mix. I find engineers, I don't know if you found this, tend to, when you play Brilliant cymbals, make them lower in the mix because they're not blending as well. And so they're kind of this high thing up on top, whereas with natural models, I find they tend to let them sit into the music a little bit more, which I've come to really like. So for me, my default now, I don't know what you is the natural, but I go to Brilliant as, do I want this more glassy? Do I want a splash that's really got that nice loud cut that's really going to have an extra sheen on it? And the other thing is, in terms of pairing, I don't know what you, but I've also found that I'm weirded now about crashes and having both natural or both brilliant. Because I find if I have one and the other, as a family, they tend to sit very well.
I mix and match.
Yeah. And I have as well, but I've started to find that when I do, it starts to bother me.
What I found though is I tend to use Nigelisms, I call them. He knows all about them. That's certain terminologies that is not in the dictionary, that's only known to me or people around me. But the brilliant finish tends to have a butteriness to them, right? Whereas natural finish tends to have a bit more girth or raw. So if you want to have a bit more, if your style of music, you want it to be a lot more dirty, the tendency is you may want to go raw. You may want to go natural. If you want to have a bit more smoothness, for lack of a better term, see what I'm talking about, like physics, then you may want to go a bit glassy, right? And it's not, one of the cool things with this particular, well, with Sabian anyways, is that that brilliant finish does not come at an extra charge. You know what I mean? It's not because they're not buying any polish, they're not doing it, they're just buffering it, there you go, and it shines. Right? So it really comes down to what sound are you feeling, right? Like Matt, most of the stuff I'm going to these days tends to be natural because I like that natural raw thing. But I mean, I have one of the later purchases I got was a rye that was brilliant finish, and I love it. You know what I mean? It has a bit of that sheen to it, but it still has some girth in it, right?
Sometimes the finish can be the answer or the countermeasure to a cymbal that's not quite there. So, for example, with a cymbal like this right here, which is the 21-inch, this is Nigel's personal ride, the 21-inch Legacy Heavy Brilliant that he's talking about. That model in the natural has a very a lot of what's a ta to the right as opposed to a ting. So instead of a ting, it's a ta, like a lot of a dark character.
I knew someone named Ta.
And when it's just a little darker like that, you kind of want that countermeasure to be like, if this was just a little brighter, oh, I'll get the Brilliant. Or vice versa. Oh, this is nice, but you know, if I could get this just a little more raw, but not far, just a little, I don't want to get a different cymbal, that could be almost the sort of that push it over the edge kind of thing.
Right.
The other thing, I think, the word I like to use with natural is for music, as far as sitting music, is organic music. I like to think if the music is very organic, if the elements of the music are very raw and pure and dirty, then I like natural. But if the elements of music are very shiny and pristine, like pop rock or like bright funk or Latin music in particular, I find I really like Brilliant because I like that extra glassy sheen on those styles that have that glassy sheen, those artists that like that kind of sound.